Cooking a Surprise. Written by Chilikins. Read by Arashi. In their months of marriage, Bernadetta has nearly conquered any lingering fears of Hubert's more ominous characteristics. She is sometimes still caught off guard by a sudden appearance or a laugh, but the embroidered flower on his front always brings her back to herself without much fuss. No, these days she has a much greater challenge. How can you keep a secret from your husband, who works in secrets and shadows for a living? His birthday is fast approaching, and she's determined to make it a good one. Their year at the Officers' Academy had been so quiet about the date that she doubts she would have realized, even if she hadn't been avoiding him. It makes sense, though. He has the feeling of someone who doesn't think his birthday is a particularly remarkable date, and that had likely been reinforced by his focus on bringing Edelgard's vision to fruition. Even now, with the war behind them, he is still as busy as ever. On one hand, it means he's often out of the manor, now that she's done with her initial explorations of the outer reaches of the Empire. This gives Bernadetta much-needed openings to work on the various surprises she has planned: new embroidery work, an artistic birthday card, and a surprise meal. On the other hand, it means that he may return at any time without warning, putting her entire operation at risk. She's no liar either, so even if she hides it all away, if he has any reason to suspect she's up to something and asks her directly, she knows full well it's all going to come spilling out. When his birthday morning arrives, she basks in her success. It's all gone smoothly. She can hardly believe how lucky she's been, though it may be in part due to the desperate letters she'd sent to Edelgard and their former professor, begging them to come up with enough tasks to drown him in. Between those and all the work he likes to take on himself to begin with, he's been kept away. She follows him to the door as she often does, but the way he studies her indicates that she's got a different expression from usual. At least she has an excuse for it that doesn't give everything away.
"Happy birthday, Hubert,"
she says, smiling. He blinks, almost as if he hadn't realized what day it is. "Thank you." It's tempting to give him one of his gifts now, before he leaves, but that might open her up to questions, to ruin the rest of the surprises. She can't risk it. She has to be patient, and pretend like the standard greeting is all he's going to be receiving. Thankfully, his expectations seem low. He ducks down to give her their customary brief kiss before he leaves, and he doesn't seem to suspect a thing. Bernadetta waits several minutes to ensure he doesn't have to double back, though she's never known him to forget anything, before entering the kitchen. Now it's time for her final mission, making him a favorite dinner for him to return home to. Does she know when he'll be able to enjoy that meal? No, but he's never spent the night away, unless it's an extended mission, and there's been no indication of one starting. So, whether he has it in the early evening or just minutes before his birthday officially ends, he will be having it. In the same letters to Edelgard and the professor, Bernadetta had asked for recipes for meals that he enjoyed. They've eaten together before, of course, but she's sure that there are ones that they hadn't had that he likes above the rest. Sure enough, the professor had kept meticulous notes on the meals that every Black Eagle liked and disliked, and Bernadetta had been blessed with many options to choose from. Or maybe it's a curse. She's still not sure. She'd wallowed in indecision for days after the recipes arrived, and eventually decided to pick several of them. This way, in case Hubert's tastes have changed since they were students, she's increasing the odds that she doesn't manage to ruin his entire evening. Is cooking 3 dinners on her own a good idea? She supposes she's about to find out. But now that she's committed herself, she's not going back. Hiding his other surprises had been relatively easy, but keeping him from noticing the sudden increase of ingredients in their pantry had been a bit trickier. She'd had to stash them in various places around the manor, and stealthily add them to the pantry a handful at a time, rather than all at once. She could add a bit more when they were eating their normal supplies, but that meant she also had to ensure he didn't end up eating the last of what she needed. But somehow, it all worked out. It doesn't seem hard to believe that he hadn't noticed, but if he hasn't said anything, which will have to do. Bernadetta goes to the remaining hiding places and pulls everything out, setting it all into groups based on the meal. With cooking equipment and food at the ready, it's time for Chef Bernie to get to work. She starts with the pickled seafood and vegetables, which would likely have been impossible to get the ingredients for, if not for the help of Petra and her international connections. It's a relatively easy meal to prepare, given the fish doesn't need to be cooked. Next, she'll turn to the cheesy Verona stew to check off the box of cooked fish, and finish up with a Garrick mock meat pie for his love of meat. All in all, a good variety. Bernadetta easily loses herself in the rhythm of cooking. It had been one of her favorite activities to do back at the academy, and now she finds herself wishing she'd been able to do it with her classmates instead of just the professor. Perhaps she might have grown more comfortable with them sooner. In hindsight, it may have been a better idea to do the pickled plate last, as she has to admit she doesn't care much for the smell. Even when she stores it for Hubert's return, she suspects the scent will remain. All the more reason to ensure she finishes before he's back. He'll be able to identify it immediately. So, if she's still in the midst of cooking the rest... No, she can't think of such things. She hums to herself as she puts the finishing touches on the pickled seafood and vegetables. After storing it safely away, she throws herself right back into it. The stew is much more pleasing to work with. Just watching the cheese melting is strangely mesmerizing, and it distracts her more than she'd care to admit. And if she sneaks a little taste of it, well, it's not like anyone's there to stop her. After smelling the pickled ingredients for so long, the smell of the fish and cheese is even more appealing. It's tempting to steal a bit more of the dish than just the cheese, but she forces herself to be patient. She'll be eating some of it that evening. There are plenty of other foods in the manor for her to feed her grumbling stomach after making the stew. Except, once she finishes the stew, she glances at the ingredients for the meat pie. It seems like a shame to let her cooking momentum go to waste when she has just one dish left. She's missed meals before, so it wouldn't hurt her to skip lunch to ensure she finishes all of Hubert's treats with plenty of time to spare.
There's no stopping Chef Bernie,
she says to herself, already imagining the feeling of a job well done. The meat pie is a bit more complicated than the other meals, on account of having to make a pie crust as well, but she doesn't mind. It's like she's making one of her favorite sweet desserts, though she'll be putting more into the pie than she would for, say, a single fruit pie. It's not as if the meat and tomatoes are difficult to handle, and she and the cheese are well acquainted. Now, to start cooking the meat, that is a lot of food for one person. Bernadetta squeaks and spins around. How does he always sneak up on her so easily? At least, she's not in fear for her life now when he does it. But still, surely she should have built some sort of secret sense for whenever he's around by now. Are you planning on eating it all yourself? Hubert asks.
Yes! No.
She stares at him, panicked, barely able to notice the slight upturn at the corner of his mouth.
Okay. You caught me. I wanted to make you some of your favorite meals for a special birthday dinner, but now the surprise is ruined.
It's not ruined.
It's not?
I assure you that I am surprised. His smile is complete, though wry, although that also seems to be a lot of food for the two of us. Bernadetta looked at the 2 completed dishes and the progress of the meat pie.
Maybe, but these are some of the foods you like to eat at the Officers' Academy, and I wasn't sure if your tastes had changed over the years, so I thought it would be better if I made more of them just in case.
My tastes haven't changed, but that was sound reasoning. Hubert joins her at the stove. Were you planning on skipping your own meals to make these?
I didn't plan to, but, well, it's taking a bit longer than I expected it to,
she admits. Then let us finish cooking this one together. She stares at him, scandalized.
Hubert, you can't cook your own birthday dinner.
Why not?
Because it's just not right.
Hubert merely shrugs and puts some more of the meat in the skillet. I would think I have some additional authority on this day, so I decree I am allowed to help.
But
you've already done the brunt of the work, Bernadetta. Allow me to help you complete it. Still, she hesitates, except Hubert seems to have already made his decision, and it's not as if she can body him out of the kitchen, and it's not as if she doesn't enjoy cooking with him. She enjoys the little moments when they can do the mundane things together. Perhaps it's silly, because so much of their time together has been during war, but maybe that's why she does enjoy these times. The times where they dust the many shelves around the manor, the times when they organize paperwork. She suspects it's a domestic side of Hubert that few in his life have been allowed to see, and while she always will be a little confused about being on that list, it's still a touching honor.
I suppose you can help,
she says. He gives a short laugh. Thank you for the permission. So they settle into a routine. One of them will read off the recipe, as the other gathers the next ingredients and adds it to the mix. And sometimes they will switch off. He's just as efficient with recipes as he is with everything else. Yet the quiet makes it feel like it's a slow process. He still towers over her, yet his movements are precise. It's comforting. When it comes time to assemble the pie, Bernadetta insists on handling the crust as Hubert pours the mix of meat, cheese, and tomatoes. In half the time than she'd expected, the pie is ready to be baked. She allows him the honor of putting it on the fire. It won't be long now until everything is done.
How was your work?
She asks. Suspiciously busy. He eyes her. I am beginning to wonder if you had something to do with the sudden increase of paperwork to take care of. She hurries away to pick out the plates and silverware for the meal, knowing full well she's giving him an answer. Even the suspicious amount of paperwork hadn't been a match for his efficiency, it seems. Oh well, you do realize that none of this was necessary, he says.
That's why it's special,
she says, putting the silverware on the plate, and the plates near where the food is gathered.
I did it because I wanted to surprise you, not because I thought I had to.
Hubert dips his head in acknowledgement. It is the most effort anyone has put in for my birthday in some years, and I expect it will not be matched. It almost feels like she's back at the academy, being praised by their professor for doing well on an exam. She'd received a good grade in birthday surprise, and Hubert doesn't give praise lightly, so it's doubly impressive.
That may be true, she says. Now that I know your food tastes haven't changed, I don't have to make 3 meals now.
With a slight smile of his, he says, No, you don't. The topic of conversation turns from him to her as he asks her for more information about her previous explorations. She's been to so many places that she always has more to tell, and she takes pleasure in the fact that the same stories she's happy to tell are ones that have helped him in his work in the shadows. She doesn't always know what helps and what doesn't, but Hubert knows, and he never forces her to only talk about those pieces, and that's all that matters. It doesn't seem like he's been back long, let alone that the meat pie can be close to being done. Yet the new smells in the kitchen draw her attention to the fact that they've been talking for some time. Hubert carefully moves the pie from the fire to a platter, and just like that, Bernadetta's mission is complete. Well, almost. Now there's the difficulty of how to pick the portions and how to fit them on their plates. There are worse problems to have, she supposes. They'll be eating Hubert's birthday dinner for many meals, even if they manage to convince some of their friends to take some of it. He's undoubtedly eating the brunt of it. She doesn't dislike any of the foods, but they're not what she would choose for herself. "Thank you for your work, Bernadetta," Hubert says some time later, after they've finished eating. "One meal would have been more than satisfactory, and here you've gone and done 3.
I'm sorry that they weren't all done before you came back, though."
He shakes his head. "You have nothing to apologize for. Would you expect anyone else to apologize to you for making a surprise for you?"
No.
"And as it happens, I enjoyed cooking with you." She smiles.
I did too. Maybe next year I'll come up with 4 meals.
"There's no need to get carried away."
I suppose not. Oh, but I have other surprises for you too. I almost forgot. Wait right there.